it would have been good for us to have read the entire Passion from the Gospel of St. Matthew, but the liturgy gives me the freedom not to do it when I celebrate more than one Mass, and for me this is the fourth. So that's why the Missal tells us to read the last section of it. Now, you must be able to remember, and if you have read it this week, or if not, you will be able to read it this week. But the whole thing begins with Jesus taking his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane. Then he asks his disciples to watch and pray. Then he goes by himself to pray for a while, and then he comes back, he finds them sleeping. Then a few moments later, Judas comes with a whole army to arrest our Lord. From there, he is taken to Pilate's house to be judged, and then they determine that he's liable to death, and so he's condemned to death. Then he's ridiculed, mocked, spit upon, and all of these things. Then they take him to Pilate, and he doesn't find anything in him guilty. So he washes his hand, and he offers an option to the people. He said, I have a prisoner here, Barabbas and Jesus. Who do you want? And they decided what they wanted and who they wanted. So they chose our Lord. And they, all together decided that it was best to kill him. So they take him to Calvary. On the way to Calvary, they get Simon of Cyrene to carry the cross. They get to Mount Calvary, and he's crucified, and he dies there. But the most beautiful thing at the end of the Gospel Passion says that Joseph goes and reclaims the body of Jesus for himself. When none of his disciples were able to be there, Joseph, at least at the end, decides to keep the body of our Lord. Now, the question is, there are so many questions. Why did this happen? Why did it happen this way? What is it that we could have done if we had been there? Because there is something essentially absurd, something even irrational about the whole Passion narrative in the Gospel of St. Matthew. We should at least be left with the feeling that it should not have happened this way, that it was not supposed to happen this way. And I think sometimes that Christians today try to come to terms with their discomfort over cruelty, the brutality of the Passion of our Lord, by telling themselves that it was a divine mystery, that only God knows why it happened. But that is not true. Christ didn't want to be crucified any more than you or I would want. Christ did not choose to be crucified. Rather, he chose to be faithful, even if that meant being crucified. See? Now, you already know some of the elements that led to this moment of the death of our Lord. First, we have Judas. And with him, we already understand that there is nothing more cruel than ingratitude. See, Jesus had raised Judas to the high rank of being an apostle, a disciple. He had made him one of his closest friends and had entrusted him with the secrets of his divine love. But then at the end, Judas betrays him. And it is quite certain that Judas didn't get to this point all of a sudden. It took his whole life, little by little, by not dealing well with a passion. He did not deal with his passion, his ambition, on time. His love of money was his most predominant passion, and he didn't deal with it on time. See? So, the passion grew, and then he became a thief. And from being a thief, he became the betrayer of our Lord. And he did that in spite of all the extraordinary graces he had received. And I can tell you that we have received a lot more graces than he did. See? At the Last Supper, when everyone was gathered around Jesus, he told them, tonight one of you is going to betray me. And each one of them started saying, is it going to be me? See? Then right after that, Judas received communion in the stead of mortal sin. That was the beginning of the whole thing. See? At the end, he's not even able to recognize Christ in the middle of the night. He brings an entire army with torches to find him. And then, once they see him, Jesus asks one question to him. What are you doing here? Why do you come here? And that's probably the same thing that Jesus could be asking each one of us. Why do you become Catholic? See? So the example of Judas is a lesson to us. It's a lesson to us. The same thing with Peter. He had sworn that he was willing to die for Christ any minute. Any minute. But the occasion had not presented itself yet. He took them to the Garden of Gethsemane, and then he asks them, why do you pray and watch? They fell asleep, got fearful of the whole thing, and left. Then Peter began following Jesus from far away, not wanting to be seen by anyone. And sooner or later, whoever follows Jesus from far away, he's going to betray Jesus sooner or later. That's what happened to Peter. See? So in the whole narrative of the Passion of our Lord, we see a picture of ourselves there. With it, we know that we are capable of doing the best and the worst, of changing from being good to being bad in one single day. See? But perhaps nowadays we are more accustomed to cruelty. to violence. Because, far from being outraged by brutality and violence, we actually entertain ourselves with it. We spend hours and hours watching television shows. See, probably we have not become more sensitive than Pilate. Because when it comes to hurting other people or offending God, we do it. Pilate at least washed his hands and said, I have nothing to do with it. But we do. We do. Now, the story of the Passion has been told for 2,000 years. And with each retelling, we must see a little, at least more clearly, what we are capable of doing, not only to one another, but to God. If there is one predominant attitude in today's world, it would have to be indifference. See? Indifference. So, today, at the beginning of the greatest of weeks, it would be a great thing for us to make a little resolution to be better Christians. Those palms that you have holding your hand, you take them with you. Take them home with you. From time to time, take a look at them. They are the symbols of martyrdom. The day you were baptized, you promised to die with him. And in fact, that's what you have come to do today. We come to unite ourselves to Jesus in his sacrifice on the altar. And that's what we are going to do. So those palms that you are holding now represent your vocation, the standard of your vocation. You are not here in this world to become a failure. You are here to conquer with Christ.